Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's going to be comparing the 5th gen 4Runner TRD Pro to the Toyota Land Cruiser. I know that a lot of people are currently making this comparison. They're deciding to go to Toyota's future or go with something that they know is going to be reliable, and well, I'll help you guys make that decision in today's video. Before we get into this video, huge shout out and thank you to the Carl Malone Toyota here in Draper. They're the ones that gave me time with this 4Runner TRD Pro. Link to their website in the description down below. Link to my car buying guide as well. Let's get into it. Powering the Land Cruiser is a 2.4 liter turbo 4-cylinder paired to a hybrid system, and it goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It puts out 326 horsepower and then 465 pound-feet of torque. Fuel economy with this, what I've been actually averaging, is low 20s. Now, powering the 4Runner is a 4-liter V6 naturally aspirated, goes through a 5-speed automatic transmission. It puts out 270 horsepower and then 278 pound-feet of torque, and then when we had one of these, we averaged about 17-18 miles per gallon. Now, before we move forward with this comparison, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Now, when it comes to looks, I think both of them look really cool, but there are some design elements that are better on both of them, and we'll talk about that. So, with the Land Cruiser, it's got that retro boxy design. You got the circular headlights, the Heritage Toyota logo. It all looks really cool. One thing that I'm not a huge fan of is all of the plastic here at the bottom and a lot of it on the front end. Now this new Land Cruiser is obviously more affordable than the previous one, but still, when you compare that to the 4Runner, which is a completely more affordable car, notice how much more of the front end is actually painted, but we do still have some kind of plasticky elements. Anyways, love the skid plate there at the bottom of the TRD Pro. You do have some skid plate protection with the Land Cruiser. It's just not so prominent with the style of the vehicle. But overall, I think they both hold up really well in terms of style next to each other. It's cool to see. Now, when it comes to tire and wheel setup, the Land Cruiser has 18-inch wheels. You can put 33s on these from the factory, whereas with the 4Runner, it's got 17-inch wheels. The biggest tire you can fit is a 32.5, if I remember properly. Notice painted and then unpainted, which is very interesting to see. You got rock rail protection there, and interestingly enough, the 4Runner TRD Pro does not have rock rail protection. Quick look at the mirror cap difference. The Land Cruiser is a lot boxier. They actually both have roof racks with them, and surprisingly both of these roof racks are pretty darn quiet, which is not usually a hallmark of roof racks, but that's one benefit of them. And then solid rear axle with both of them, and you'll note the Land Cruiser has significantly less aggressive tires compared to the 4Runner from the factory. Here's your side profile with the Land Cruiser. You can see again that boxy design, and then here's your side profile with the 4Runner. You can see that it's, you know, muscular but not nearly as boxy. Now the 4Runner has the cool window, which is always a fun thing, and the new 4Runner is going to have that as well. They're going to keep that a feature, but definitely a nice thing. This is manual for the operation. Tons of storage space here in the rear. You can see the little charging port area there in the back, but really solid setup. They do give a little grab handle for the short folks, but popping that down. The rest of the rear I think looks really cool. You got the little TRD exhaust that pops out the bottom, but yeah, definitely a nice look. With the Land Cruiser here, you guys can see this little tab here, and that's because you've got a button here on the side to pull this open, so it's manual with the operation. But what's not manual, so it's like they're opposite. The hatch, manual window, automatic hatch, automatic window, manual hatch. You do lose a little bit of space because of the battery underneath the loading floor here, but still very spacious vehicle. The loading floor is just a little bit higher. Something to know is this does go a little bit deeper compared to the 4Runner. I mean, that's what it looks like visually too. And then again, you've got that boxy design. Let me know which one you like the looks of, but again, I think the 4Runner surprisingly has held up really well in terms of design over time. And then with the interior in the 4Runner, it feels very durable. It's kind of one of the hallmarks of this. Really cool with like the red stitching and everything. These are easy to clean, by the way, because they're not perforated. And then room back here is good. Got some vents here for the rear passengers, USB ports. This does pop down a bit for the sunroof. That's something to note, but then it raises up here, so headroom overall is pretty good. Now, popping in the Land Cruiser definitely feels more luxe with everything. I mean, even the seats, they look more luxurious. Surprisingly, passenger area feels a little more cramped. Like I feel like my knees are pushed up a little bit higher. Got our own climate zone here in the back, which is nice. Headroom is not, I mean, it still kind of pops down a little bit here and then goes up, but it's not nearly as much as the 4Runner, but still it's a thing. Now taking a look at the front door panel with the 4Runner, again, you can see with all of the red stitching, all of the windows are automatic, which is nice. You got blind spot running with the mirrors. So let's actually compare payloads with these. So 880 for the 4Runner, and then you can see the front seat there. Quickly pop in. Getting in is really easy. You just kind of slide right across, which is nice. It does have a push button start. You can see mostly analog for the gauge cluster. It's pretty cool. There. And then a lot of analog controls here on the steering wheel. You can get a 360 camera with the 4Runner. I don't think this one, yeah, this one doesn't have it, but you can get it with this generation of 4Runner. And then, yeah, you've got Toyota Solar infotainment system, which definitely a throwback. Dual zone climate controls, and then notice we've got an actual shifter here for the 4-wheel drive select. And this is, you know, traditional 2-speed transfer case with 2-wheel drive. And then we've got the giant TRD shifter. You got the cool kind of like carbon fiber trim throughout, and that's for the window. Heated seats, big center console, nice trim here on the top. And no, this has almost 30,000 miles and everything looks pretty much brand new. That's one of the things about the 4Runner interiors. It holds up really well. Now this, of course, I don't know if it's going to pop up on camera very well because the lighting's horrible, but it has crawl control. It's got the A-track system. It's got a rear locking differential. It's got multi-terrain select. It has all the off-road stuff. You can see the sunroof here as well. And this leads us to the Land Cruiser. Again, it's just kind of a little bit more luxurious looking with all of the trim here. Like these controls are straight out of a Lexus. Memory seats, got blind spot with the mirrors. You actually do have more payload, 1,100 pounds. And then, yeah, look at the seats. Perforated, really fancy pants. You've got all the adjustments there on the side. You can see the trailer brake controls and everything. And then getting in, you actually have to step up a bit. So the Land Cruiser is a little bit harder to get into. It's not bad though. Door doesn't sound any more expensive. Full digital gauge cluster here. So that's a big difference. And you can see the controls here on the steering wheel look a little bit more modern. And then even though the 4Runner can have a 360, this 360 camera system is significantly crisper. And then down below we've got our dual zone climate controls, heated and ventilated seats. So this has ventilated seats. You can't get them in the 4Runner at all. And then this has a more advanced system with the multi-terrain select and everything, so it's not as like crunchy and loud as a 4Runner. I've seen some videos. Driving Sports TV has a really good off-road comparison with these two. And then you can see here, the 4Runner only has a rear locking differential. This has a center as well as a stabilizer bar disconnect, and it's a full-time 4-wheel drive system, so that's another big difference. The center console is a cool box with this one, which is pretty cool. See what I did there? Nice trim here on the top, camera rear view mirror, and then we do have a sunroof. So just kind of a more luxurious experience. So the 4Runner TRD Pro 2024, brand new for a loaded up one, it's like $58,000 for the MSRP. Now this Land Cruiser is a little bit of an aberration. It's a first edition. There is a price premium on the first edition. If it was just a premium with these options, which you can more than order one of those, you're gonna be looking at about $72,000. So there's a $14,000 price difference between both of these vehicles roughly. So I mean, it's a pretty big chunk of change if you ask me. Let's drive them and see which one performs the best. Well, let us set off in the 4Runner first and then the Land Cruiser second. Really excited to finally do this comparison. I have been wanting to compare these because, I mean, if you get like a base model Land Cruiser, not a base model, but a mid-trim Land Cruiser, so the Land Cruiser without the sunroof and all of that, I mean, it's barely more expensive than a 4Runner TRD Pro. And some dealerships are even doing discounts, so then you could get them super, super close in the pricing department. So suffice to say, it's an interesting comparison. And I know a lot of people are comparing because it's like, well, on one side you got proven reliability, and on the other side you've got something that is really cool, has a lot of cool features, but you know, is it gonna be reliable? Something that I'll say about the 4Runner interiors, it is held up so well, really. Just the trim pieces and everything. I mean, this has almost 30,000 miles on it, which, you know, people in the 4Runner world are going to say, ah, it's just getting broken in, right? And that's very true when you have a car that can go over 300,000 miles. Now, this 4.0 V6 is quite the engine. It's a torque monster on the low end, and it's really good, actually. Now, it doesn't have an insane amount of horsepower, but it sounds good, and so it's like going up to the higher RPMs that you have to drive this, it's not bothersome. It's not bothersome at all. Man, there's a lot more traffic than I would think. But yeah, I mean, you can see it's not a fast car. And that's one thing that does kind of bother people with the 4Runner, but it's got so much torque that you just kind of ride on the torque wave with it, similar to a turbo car in a way. And that's one of the, I don't know, I think that's one of the cool things about the 4Runners. And you know, when it comes to noise, we'll compare it to the Land Cruiser, but it's not too bad. You do get a bit from the tires. I guess there's nothing up top pretty much. And it can, again, it's not fast, but it can stay up to speed, no problem. Just it's a nice setup. It's comfortable too. Now, 4Runners with the KDSS are the most comfortable. TRD Pros can't have that. But even without the KDSS, the Fox shocks and everything, they handle really well. And I like the view out over the hood with the little scoop there. It's cool looking. Yeah, it handles well. Yeah, like I said, you're not winning any races anytime soon, but it feels good to drive because you've got so much torque with this 4-liter V6. So with that being said, let's pop into the Land Cruiser and see how it compares. Well, let us set off in the Land Cruiser. So what I'll say right off the bat, the seats in the 4Runner aren't uncomfortable, but the seats in the Land Cruiser are a little bit squishier, a little bit more comfortable. It's not a huge difference, but there is a difference. And you do have cooled function, which means that on a warmer day like today, we can use that as well, which is always nice. Aside from that, it is more luxe right off the bat. You like less noise from outside. The 4Runner's got less sound deadening, so this feels more luxury. The braking is weird. It's kind of, see, when I got into this morning, I didn't think the braking was weird, but driving it back to back with the 4Runner, the braking feels weird now in the Land Cruiser. Isn't that weird? Isn't that strange? But yeah, everything definitely, I mean, the 4Runner interior, I really like the 4Runner interior personally, but this definitely feels more luxe. You'd hope so for the extra money that they're asking. Interesting. This doesn't handle as well as the 4Runner. And I think it's because it's 4-wheel drive all the time. Because when you put the 4Runner in 4-wheel drive, the turning radius is pretty bad, but this, yeah, it makes sense. 2-wheel drive versus 4-wheel drive. You're almost always gonna have better turn in with 2-wheel drive. Interesting. So it definitely has more power. Doesn't sound good. It doesn't feel like, it feels more powerful, that's for sure. But it's not as big of a difference as you might think, which is kind of strange. The torque's definitely good. So like the 4Runner, you kind of go up a little bit in the RPMs to keep it going. This, I mean, it's basically just above idle, and it's able to, so it's probably 1,000 RPMs less than the 4Runner for a similar outcome. Less noise on the highway, a little bit more wind noise up here. It's definitely a more luxury, luxe ride. It's more comfortable. It is in fact more comfortable. So to sum things up with this comparison, tough decision. Because again, you can get a mid-trim Land Cruiser for just barely more than a 4Runner TRD Pro, and that's a really appealing buy. So I don't think there's like necessarily a winner slash loser in this situation. I think it's just for different buyers. 4Runner is going to give you a guarantee that it's reliable, right? This we just don't know at this point, and there's been some issues with the transmissions and everything, so we have to understand that. But in terms of like the overall product, like I kind of lean towards the 4Runner. It has a little bit more character. This drives really well. It's like it can go off-road, it's luxury, but it's kind of soulless, as bad as that sounds. The 4Runner has some character, and the 4Runner feels like durable, feels tank-like and all that, and this has a tank-like feel to it, but just not quite in the same level as a 4Runner. So yeah, again, either way, it'd be a hard choice between the two, but I kind of lean towards a 4Runner a little bit, because if this was guaranteed to be reliable, I don't think I would lean as much towards the 4Runner, because this is quicker, better fuel economy, all that kind of stuff. But with the reliability and everything else in mind, it pushes me a little bit closer to the 4Runner. But let me know if you'd go Land Cruiser or 4Runner TRD Pro.